7 forgotten World War II weapons that were way ahead of their time. World War II wasn't just a clash of nations. It was a battleground for groundbreaking technology. Engineers and inventors worldwide pushed the limits, creating weapons that could have changed the course of history. Some, like the M1 Garand or the Thompson submachine gun, became legends. But others? They faded into obscurity, despite being absolute game changers. These unsung heroes of innovation either didn't get the mass production they deserved or were overshadowed by simpler, cheaper alternatives. Yet, their influence echoes in the weapons we see today. 1. The SVT-38 Svetka, the Soviet sniper's secret weapon. Let's kick things off with a Soviet gem, the SVT-38, affectionately nicknamed Svetka by the troops. This semi-automatic rifle, rolled out in 1938, was a technological marvel for its time. Imagine a weapon that combined the rapid-fire capability of a submachine gun with the precision of a bolt-action rifle. That was the SVT-38, a dream come true for soldiers who knew how to handle it. What made the SVT-38 so special? The SVT-38, designed by Sergei Semenov and Fyodor Tokarev, was the Soviet Union's answer to the need for a modern infantry rifle. The trusty Mosin Nagant was reliable but slow, requiring soldiers to manually cycle the bolt after each shot. The SVT-38, it fired as fast as you could pull the trigger, making it a favorite among Soviet snipers and elite units like the naval infantry. With a 10-round magazine and solid accuracy, it was a beast on the battlefield. But here's the catch. The SVT-38 was a diva. It was complex to manufacture and maintain, especially by 1930 standards. Ammo quality was another issue. Early Soviet cartridges were prone to jamming, especially in the mud and snow of the Eastern Front. Plus, many infantrymen lacked the training to properly care for such a sophisticated weapon. In well-trained hands, though, the SVT-38 was a superstar, racking up kills and earning respect. The economic angle. To understand why the SVT-38 didn't become a mainstay, let's look at the Soviet economy in the late 1930s. The USSR was in the midst of rapid industrialization, but resources were stretched thin. Producing the SVT-38 was pricey. Historical records suggest it cost 2 to 3 times more than a Mosin Nagant, which could be churned out by the millions. In the chaos of 1941, when Nazi Germany invaded, Soviet factories were either evacuated or focused on pumping out simpler weapons. The SVT-38 just couldn't compete with the sheer volume of Mosins flooding the front lines. By 1942, only about 1.5 million SVT-38s had been produced, compared to over 17 million Mosin Nagants by war's end. The economic reality of wartime production favored quantity over quality, leaving the SVT-38 as a niche weapon for specialized units. My take: the SVT-38 is like that brilliant musician who never got their big break. It had all the makings of a legend, but was held back by timing and circumstance. If the Soviets had invested more in training and production, this rifle could have been a precursor to modern semi-auto rifles like the M14 or even the SVD Diakenov. It's a reminder that great ideas need the right environment to thrive. What do you think? Could the SVT-38 have changed the war if it had been mass-produced? Drop your thoughts in the comments. 2. EMP-35, the German submachine gun you've never heard of. When you think of German submachine guns from World War II, the MP-3840 probably comes to mind. It's the iconic Schmeisser you see in every World War II movie. But there's another German submachine gun that deserves some love, the EMP-35. This bad boy was a hidden gem in the Wehrmacht's arsenal, and it was arguably better than its more famous cousin. The EMP-35 story. The EMP-35 Erfurter Maschinen pistol, developed by Irma Werke in the 1930s, was originally designed for export. Think of it as Germany's attempt to cash in on the global arms market. But when World War II broke out, The EMP-35 found its way into German hands, especially among elite units. What made it stand out? Precision and reliability. Unlike the MP-38/40, which could overheat or jam in harsh conditions, the EMP-35 was a workhorse, delivering accurate bursts even in the dust and grime of battle. Its downside? Cost. The EMP-35 was a high-end piece of kit, requiring quality materials and skilled labor. In a war where Germany needed to arm millions, the cheaper and simpler MP-38/41 out. Still, the EMP-35's design influenced later weapons, including the iconic Israeli Uzi submachine gun. Economic context. Germany's wartime economy was a roller coaster. By 1939, the Third Reich was burning through resources to sustain its blitzkrieg campaigns. Producing an MP-38/40 cost about 60 Reichsmarks, while the EMP-35 was closer to 100. In a war where every penny counted, Germany prioritized mass production over quality. The EMP-35 was relegated to special forces and secondary roles, despite its superior performance. Post-war, the EMP-35's legacy lived on. Its compact design and reliable mechanics inspired a generation of submachine guns, proving that even forgotten weapons can leave a lasting mark. My thoughts. The EMP-35 is a classic case of quality losing to quantity. It's like choosing a budget smartphone over a premium one. Sometimes you just need something cheap and functional. But I can't help wondering what could have been if Germany had doubled down on the EMP-35. Could it have been the EMP-40 of its day? Let me know what you think in the comments. 3. Diakenov's rifle grenade, turning rifles into mini cannons. Rifle grenades were all the rage in the early 20th century, and every major army had their version. In the Soviet Union, the Diakenov rifle grenade launcher turned the trusty Mosin Nagant into a pocket-sized artillery piece. This little-known attachment was a game-changer in the right hands. How it worked? The Diakenov launcher was a muzzle-mounted device that lets soldiers fire grenades up to 200 to 250 yards. Picture this: a Soviet infantryman in a trench, lobbing explosives at enemy positions without needing a full-blown mortar. It was perfect for taking out bunkers or troops hiding behind cover. The grenade was loaded with a blank cartridge, and a launcher directed the blast to propel the explosive payload. The catch? It was a hassle to use. Setting up the launcher took time, and the added weight made the rifle clunky. Plus, soldiers needed training to use it effectively, which wasn't always feasible in the chaos of war. Still, in specific scenarios, like urban combat or trench warfare, the Diakenov launcher was a lifesaver. Economic and military context. Rifle grenades weren't unique to the Soviets. The Germans had their Skyisbecher for the Mauser, and the Americans used similar devices with the M1 Garand. But in the USSR, production was limited. Historical estimates suggest only a few thousand Diakenov launchers were made, compared to millions of Mosin Nagants. Why? Ammo was a big issue. Special blank cartridges were needed, and producing them diverted resources from standard rounds. Plus, training soldiers to use the launcher was time-consuming, and time was a luxury the Red Army didn't have in 1941-42. My take: the Diakenov launcher is proof that sometimes the simplest ideas can pack a punch. It's like giving every soldier a mini mortar. What's not to love? If the Soviets had streamlined production and training, this could have been a staple of their arsenal. Imagine entire platoons raining grenades on the enemy. What do you think? Would you want to wield a rifle grenade in battle? Share your thoughts below. 4. Taubin Baburin grenade launcher, a sci-fi dream that never took off. Automatic grenade launchers are standard issue today, but in the late 1930s, they were straight out of a sci-fi novel. Soviet engineers Yakov Taubin and Mikhail Baburin dreamed up a beast of a weapon. a 40.8 millimeters automatic grenade launcher capable of firing up to 400 rounds per minute. That's right, 400 grenades a minute. This thing was a potential game changer. Why it failed? The Taube and Baburin launcher was a marvel, but it had issues. During tests, the grenades were unreliable, sometimes detonating prematurely. The weapon's complex design also made it a nightmare to produce. By the time the Great Patriotic War began in 1941, the Soviet Union was in survival mode, and experimental projects like this were shelved. The focus shifted to proven weapons like mortars and artillery. But the story doesn't end there. After the war, the Soviets revisited the concept, and the Taube and Baburin's designs influenced later models like the AGS-17, a staple of Soviet and Russian forces. Economic analysis. Building an automatic grenade launcher in the 1930s was a tall order. The Soviet economy was still recovering from the turmoil of the 1920s, and military budgets were stretched thin. Producing a single Taube and Baburin launcher would have cost several times more than a standard machine gun, like the DP-28. Plus, the 40.8 millimeters grenades required a dedicated production line, which was a logistical headache. In wartime, the Soviets needed weapons they could churn out fast, not experimental prototypes. My thoughts. The Taube and Baburin launcher is the kind of bold idea that makes you wonder, what if? If it had been perfected, it could have turned Soviet infantry into walking artillery units. It's a reminder that innovation often comes with growing pains. Do you think this weapon could have changed a war? Let me know in the comments. 5. PDM-42. The underdog that challenged the PPSH-41. The PPSH-41 submachine gun is a Soviet icon, known as the weapon of victory. Its drum magazine and rapid fire made it a favorite on the Eastern Front. But in 1942, Soviet designers tried to one-up it with the PDM-42, a lighter, simpler alternative designed by Vasily Degurev. What set the PDM-42 apart? The PDM-42 was built to address the PPSH-41's flaws. The PPSH was heavy, bulky, and not exactly user-friendly in tight spaces. The PDM-42, firing the same 7.62 by 25 millimeters round, was more compact and easier to produce. It aimed to be the perfect balance of firepower and portability. But it took nearly 2.5 years to refine, and by 1945, the Red Army was already flush with PPSH-41s and the even better PPS-43 designed by Alexei Sudyev. Economic context. In 1942, the Soviet Union was fighting for survival. Factories were working overtime, and switching to a new weapon meant retooling production lines, a risky move. The PPSH-41 cost about 500 rubles to produce, while the PDM-42 could have been cheaper, around 400 rubles. But the time and effort needed to scale up production made it impractical. The PPS-43, even simpler and cheaper, ultimately won out. My take. The PDM-42 is the ultimate what could have been. It had all the makings of a great weapon, but timing is everything. If the war had dragged on, it might have become a staple. It's like a great indie band overshadowed by a chart-topping pop star. What do you think? Could the PDM-42 have outshined the PPSH? Drop your thoughts below. 6. Kalashnikov's early submachine gun, the seed of a legend. Mikhail Kalashnikov is a name synonymous with the AK-47. But did you know he cut his teeth on a submachine gun during World War II? The PPK-42, developed in 1942, was Kalashnikov's first stab at creating a game-changing weapon. The PPK-42's story. The PPK-42 was designed as a lighter, simpler alternative to the PPSH-41. Kalashnikov focused on ergonomics and ease of production, addressing the PPSH's bulkiness. The PPK-42 saw limited use, mostly in field tests, and was outclassed by the PPS-43. but its real value was in the lessons it taught Kalashnikov. Many of its features, simplified mechanics, ergonomic design, found their way into the AK-47, which changed warfare forever. Economic angle. The PPK-42 was cheaper than the PPSH-41, but the Soviet war machine couldn't afford to experiment. With factories cranking out PPSH-41s and PPS-43s, there was no room for a new contender. The focus was on flooding the front lines with weapons, not perfecting prototypes. My thoughts. The PPK-42 is like Kalashnikov's rough draft for greatness. It didn't make the cut, but it set the stage for one of the most iconic weapons in history. It's a reminder that even legends start small. What do you think of Kalashnikov's early work? Share in the comments. 7. FG-42, the German wonder weapon for elite troops. The German FG-42 Fallschirmjägergewehr is the crown jewel of our list. Designed for paratroopers, this automatic rifle was a Swiss Army knife of weapons, a blend of sniper rifle, machine gun, and assault rifle. It was a masterpiece that was simply too good for its own time. Why the FG-42 was a big deal. The FG-42 could switch between single-shot and full-auto modes, making it versatile enough for snipers, paratroopers, and commandos. It was lightweight, accurate, and packed a punch with its 7.92 by 57mm Mauser rounds. But here's the rub. It was insanely expensive and complex to produce. Each FG-42 cost about 10 times more than an MP-38/40, requiring skilled labor and high-quality materials. Only elite units, like the Fallschirmjäger paratroopers, got their hands on it. Economic context. Germany's wartime economy couldn't sustain the FG-42's production. By 1943, the Third Reich was stretched thin, and resources were prioritized for tanks, planes, and mass-produced small arms. The FG-42's high cost, estimated at 600 to 700 Reichsmarks per unit, made it a luxury weapon. Only about 7,000 were ever made, compared to millions of MP-40s. My thoughts. The FG-42 is like a concept car that never hits the showroom floor. It was a glimpse of the future. Modern assault rifles like the M16 or G36 owe it a debt. If Germany had the resources to mass produce it, who knows how the war might have turned out? What do you think? Could the FG-42 have been a game changer? Let me know in the comments. These 7 weapons, the SVT-38 EMP-35, Diakenov Launcher, Taube and Baburian Grenade Launcher, PDM-42, PPK-42, and FG-42 are more than just relics. They're stories of innovation, ambition, and the harsh realities of war. Each one had the potential to rewrite history, but economics, timing, and circumstance kept them in the shadows. Yet, their influence lives on in the weapons we use today. This journey through forgotten World War II tech reminds us that even failed ideas can shape the future. So, let's celebrate these unsung heroes of engineering and keep their stories alive. Subscribe to the channel and drop your comments below. Which of these weapons blew your mind? Would you want to fire one? Share your thoughts. I'm dying to hear them. Let's keep the conversation going and honor the ingenuity of the past.